Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, where we come to transform ourselves and each other and the world. Let's all unmute for a few moments to say hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
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 Good morning.
Everybody. Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Is there a few youths?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, Karen and Carl are here.
Sure.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Oh,
You can follow the order of service by following the link in the chat. And from there, you'll see lots of links to many upcoming events. So have a look at those when you have a moment. And if you'll bear with me while I share my screen, we have a special announcement. I'm sorry, among my many technical challenges, apparently I was remembering to share the sound with you all. There was really funky music, but you know. And now, let us begin our service. Will you join me now in saying our family chalice lighting? If you know the gestures and the words, please say them along and act them along. We light this chalice for Unitarian Universalism, the church of the open minds, helping hands, and loving hearts. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words are from Reverend Shari Woodbury. We gather to worship on the brink of another Thanksgiving. Since its last celebration, our planet has journeyed 584 million miles in its orbit around our local star. To what lengths have we gone in this same span to circle around the great sun of love? And for what shall we give thanks in this season shadowed by hardship? For the miracle of breath, we give thanks. For the care of the caregivers, we give thanks. For the silliness of children, the wisdom of elders, the patience of parents, we give thanks. For all that goes right in our bodies instead of going wrong, we give thanks. For friends that reach out and for our own skills to cope, we give thanks. For clerks who clerk, teachers who teach, and leaders who lead, we give thanks. For poll workers and vaccine researchers and anonymous do-gooders, we give thanks. For the sight of friendly faces, the sound of warm voices when we are lonely and discouraged, we give thanks. For the beauty of the earth and the splendor of the skies, we give thanks. For the love which from our birth over and around us lies, we give thanks. As surely as the earth moves around the sun, held in its great power, and the tides lap at the shores, moon drawing the waters, so shall we follow the true north of love, turning toward love again and again in this sacred hour. Come, let us worship together. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, let us become centered and fully present in this place together. Please join in as Bruce leads us in singing, "We Give Thanks." The words are in your order of service.
Sharpie, remember, you're going to show me some more about spiritual practices. We were going to talk about one of the spiritual practices that you tried and liked. and I was going to show you some ways to keep at it so you don't get stuck. Right. So, which spiritual practice would you like to talk about? Well, it may sound funny, but I like to talk about prayer. I mean, it sounds funny because I don't believe in God. You don't have to believe in any gods or goddesses to do spiritual practices. That's because spiritual practices are about practice, not about belief. I still think it's funny. Anyway, I like prayers because there's something to do, and I like to talk, and prayers are words, which is like talking. But prayers are not working for you? It's just too hard. I memorized that prayer you showed me. They drew a circle that shut me out, heretic rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took them in. But I get bored saying that prayer over and over again, and it's too hard to memorize another poem. There are other ways to do prayers. Like what? One of the ways that I like to do prayers is to think about all the people I love. Yeah, I don't get it. What do you mean you like to think about the people you love? I think about everyone in our household, one after another, and what's going on in their lives. For example, right now, Ms. Bear is traveling, so I think about her and hope she stays safe. I get it. And this week, I've been thinking about you because I know you're stressed out, and I'm hoping that I can help you find a spiritual practice that makes you feel less stressed. But what if you're mad at someone and not sure about how much you love them? I think about them anyway. I try not to think about why I'm mad at them. Okay, that actually makes sense. But with other people, like people you're not mad at, why do you think about what's going on in their lives? I mean, just thinking about those other people isn't going to change things for them. That's right. But I find it's very calming to think about the people I love, and thinking about what matters to them right now helps me to think about them. That's pretty cool. I'm a very social animal, and I like thinking about other people. I especially like thinking about the people I love, and thinking about what matters most to them makes sense. I think this kind of prayer is a good idea for an animal like me. And you won't get bored? No, I won't get bored, and I don't have to memorize anything. I'll try it for a whole week, every night before I go to sleep.
We now turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives which we wish this community to share. If you have a joy or sorrow you would like me to speak this morning, please send your joys and sorrows to joyconcern@uucpa.org or post them in the chat box if you're here on Zoom, and I will share them aloud. So our week is full, just as we are. Our bellies will be full, we hope. Our hearts are full with our concerns for one another and our joys in our connections to one another. So let us hold them all in silence for a few minutes. Just feel how our whole being can expand to hold so many things, that there is room always for one more joy, one more concern to expand our hearts and be held by us in care. Blessed be. Please join in as Bruce leads us in singing Love Will Guide Us. The words are in your order of service and they're on the video.
change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Greg, I love the old story of Thanksgiving. Everybody's sitting around a table together, the Pilgrims and the Indians talking and eating.
Well, actually, that's not quite how it happened.
What do you mean?
Well, first of all, they didn't all sit around a table together. No way did they have a table big enough for 140 people.
Okay, I love the way they sat around on the ground together, the Pilgrims and the Indians talking and eating.
Well, actually, they probably didn't talk much with each other. None of the Europeans knew how to speak Wampanoag language, and only a couple of the Wampanoag people knew English.
Okay. I love the way they all sat around eating together.
Well, actually, the four women who were doing all the cooking were probably working the whole time and didn't have time to eat much.
Greg, I had this beautiful image of Thanksgiving as a time of peace and racial harmony.
Oh, you mean like the song Over the River and Through the Woods?
I thought that was a Christmas carol.
Well, actually, it's about Thanksgiving. It even says so in the lyrics.
Gee, maybe we should sing that song together. Look, the words are right here in the order of service. And here's Amy to help us sing the song.
Well, actually, the song is called Over the River and Through the Wood. That was a more common way for people to refer to a forest than it is nowadays. Will you join me in singing? Over the river and through the wood, to grandfather's house we go. The horse knows the way to carry the sleigh through the white and drifted snow. Over the river and through the wood, oh how the wind does blow. It stings the toes and bites the nose as over the ground we go. Over the river and through the wood, to have first-rate play. Hear the bells ring, ting-a-ling-ling, hurrah for Thanksgiving Day. Over the river and through the wood and straight through the barnyard gate. We seem to go extremely slow. It is so hard to wait. Over the river and through the wood, old Jowler hears our bells. He shakes his paw with a loud bow wow, and thus the news he tells. Over the river and through the wood, now grandmother's cat I spy. Hurrah for the fun is the pudding done. Hurrah for the pumpkin pie.
What a great song. Though that's not quite how I remember it.
Well, actually, those are the original lyrics to the song. They've gotten changed over the years, but that's the way Lydia Maria Child wrote them. She was Unitarian, by the way.
Greg, every time you say, well, actually, I get all tense because I know you're going to tell me something that I believed about Thanksgiving is wrong.
Well, actually, most of what we believe about history of Thanksgiving is wrong.
There, you did it again.
See, what you have to understand is that there's a difference between what happened in the past and the way we celebrate Thanksgiving today.
So what you're saying is that the actual history of Thanksgiving is complicated and not always pleasant.
Right.
But the way we celebrate the holiday today, it's all unicorns and rainbows and everything is perfect.
Well, actually.
Stop, Greg. Stop. My Thanksgiving is all unicorns and rainbows. Now, maybe your Thanksgiving isn't perfect, but mine is. Everybody helps cook the Thanksgiving dinner. We never get into any fights around the dinner table, and everybody helps wash the dishes afterwards.
Okay.
But, okay, now I'm curious. Could you tell me more about how Thanksgiving used to be different?
Sure. Let's travel back in time to 1621, when the first Thanksgiving was supposed to take place. Now, to go back in time, we'll use my Wayback Machine. The Wayback Machine only works if you close your eyes and if we have eerie music.
Here we are in 1621. Oh, look, here comes someone. Who are you? How do you celebrate Thanksgiving?
I'm from an African kingdom. I got captured by people from a nearby kingdom and sold into slavery. Then these strange-looking people with pale pink skin put me in a boat and we sailed for a long time and came to this strange land where there are more people with that strange pale pink skin. And some people with normal colored skin like me, though we don't all speak the same language, and some other people with copper-colored skin. But I don't know what you mean about Thanksgiving?
Greg, I think the Wayback Machine took us to Jamestown, Virginia, instead of Plymouth, Massachusetts. I don't know, I guess in 1621, they only had Thanksgiving in Plymouth and not anywhere else in America.
Let me readjust the location settings on the Wayback Machine. Oh, okay, we're set. Now close your eyes, eerie music.
Huh. This looks more like Massachusetts in 1621. Look, here comes someone. Who are you? How do you celebrate Thanksgiving?
I'm Squaw Sachem, the woman who rules the Massachusetts Indians. I'm sorry, I can't tell you my real name, but leaders of my people don't tell their real names. There aren't many of my people left. 90% of my people died from a disease brought over by those pale pink people who came to our land a few years ago for fishing.
Greg, this still isn't Plymouth. The Massachusetts Indians didn't live in Plymouth. It was the Wampanoag Indians who lived in Plymouth.
Sorry. Let me readjust things one more time. We'll try again. Okay, here we go.
Look, it's a pilgrim.
Pilgrim? What's a pilgrim?
Greg, didn't they call themselves pilgrims?
Well, actually, Kris, probably they just called themselves Puritans or separatists because they wanted to separate from the Church of England.
Oh, you two think I'm one of the church people here in Plymouth. Well, actually, I'm just a servant. I'm not part of their church. And there are some others here in Plymouth, sailors and some craftsmen, who are just here to work, but not really part of their church.
Wait, you mean not everyone in Plymouth in 1621 was part of the Pilgrim Church? This is more complicated than I thought.
History is often more complicated than we like to think. Now, would you like to go forward in time to see the next Thanksgiving celebration?
You mean go forward to the year 1622?
Well, actually, the next Thanksgiving celebration, where people celebrated the Pilgrims' landing at Plymouth, probably didn't take place until a couple of centuries later. In the early 19th century, let's get in the Wayback Machine and go to the year 1836. Close your eyes.
Look, it's a white woman. Who are you? And how do you celebrate Thanksgiving?
I'm Sarah Hale. I'm the new editor of a magazine known as Godey's Ladies' Book. I've decided that my magazine is going to promote a new way of celebrating Thanksgiving. I'm tired of poor people going around to wealthier neighborhoods, stopping at each house and asking for food and drink. That kind of thing can be disturbing. So I'm going to change all that. Thanksgiving will mean having a huge roast turkey, sitting down in your own house with lots of family and friends, and eating a big meal.
But those people who used to come around asking for food and drink, what will they do for dinner?
They can cook their own turkey instead of coming to my house and asking for handouts.
Well, actually, in spite of what Sarah Hale says, in those days, turkeys were too expensive for most households. Sarah Hale's idea of Thanksgiving worked well for the upper middle class and wealthy households, but most people couldn't afford that kind of Thanksgiving dinner.
Greg, you seem to know everything about Thanksgiving.
Well, actually,
Greg, before I hear any more, can we please get in the Wayback Machine and go back to our own time? Back to 2020? I want to think about what Thanksgiving means to us in our own time.
okay, close your eyes. Now make some eerie music. And here we are, back in our own time.
Whew. Now, who can tell us about Thanksgiving in our own time?
Well, actually, I think Amy has a few things she can tell us. But first, some music.
That's right. We're going to listen to Veronica play, and while she does, we will express our thanks in a way that people have been doing for a very long time. They did it thousands of years ago and in 1621, and despite Sarah Hale, a lot of people did it in 1836, and we do it today. We give something out of our own pockets or bank accounts. It's one of our ways of saying, I have enough. It's a way that we say there is enough for everyone if we use what we have received to make the world a better place. It's a way that we turn our feelings and words of thankfulness for the good things in the world into action to bring that goodness to everybody. The order of service gives a QR code and link, and also information on using text to give via Give Lively. If you're visiting for the first time, you're our guest. Please just enjoy the music and let us give to you. I'm going to talk more about Thanksgiving in 2020, just as Kris was hoping. The fact is, it's a tough year for Thanksgiving. If you had to cancel plans to travel, or you couldn't get together with family or friends you were hoping to have Thanksgiving with, take a moment right now and type me in the chat. If that means you aren't going to eat all of your usual foods, type me in the chat. Or if there's something else that you usually look forward to at Thanksgiving that just isn't going to be the same, type me in the chat. Yeah. The way we celebrate Thanksgiving in the 21st century is that we get together with people we love and eat some of our favorite foods and share what we are thankful for. And with the pandemic, it might feel like we feel extra sharply that we can't be with everyone we love. And maybe that means missing out on the dish you love best, and less pleasant feelings might crowd out gratitude. There's a word for all of this: scarcity. Scarcity is the opposite of plenty. It's the feeling of not having enough. So I'll talk for a few more minutes about Thanksgiving in 2020, but first I want to read you a story, the old-fashioned way, with a book right here, about a girl who is feeling as if her family doesn't have enough. The table where rich people sit. I'm reading part of it and showing you some of the illustrations. If you want to read the parts I'm leaving out, you can get it at the library, and lots of other books that Byrd, Baylor, and Peter Parnall have written and illustrated together. Okay, let me get things just so I can see you and my book. If you could see us sitting here at our old, scratched up, homemade kitchen table, you'd know that we aren't rich. But my father is trying to tell us we are. Doesn't he notice my worn out shoes? Or that my little brother has patches on the pants he wears to first grade? And why does he think that old rattle-trap truck is parked by our door? You can't fool me, I say. We're poor. Would rich people sit at a table like this? My mother sort of pats the table and she says, well, we're rich and we sit here every day. Sometimes I think that I'm the only person in my whole family who is really sensible. Maybe I should mention that my parents made this table out of lumber somebody else threw away. They even had a celebration when they finished it. Understand, I like this table fine. All I'm saying is, you can tell it didn't come from a furniture store. It just doesn't look like a table where rich people would sit. Right here, I might as well admit to you that my parents have some strange ideas about working. They think the only jobs worth having are jobs outdoors. They want cliffs or canyons or desert or mountains around them wherever they work. They even want a good view of the sky. They always work together, and their favorite thing is panning gold, piling us into that beat-up truck and heading for the rocky desert hills or back in some narrow mountain gully where all the roads are just coyote trails. They don't mind planting fields of sweet corn or alfalfa. They like to pick chili and squash and tomatoes. They'll put up strong fences or train wild young horses. But they say they can't stand to be cooped up indoors. So now, of course, my dad is asking how many people are as lucky as we are. But I've called this meeting, and I say, I bet you could make more money working in a building somewhere in town. Remember our number one rule, he says, we have to see the sky. You could look through a window, I say, but they won't even think about it. Do you see what I mean about being the sensible one? Finally, my mother says, all right, mountain girl, we're going to explain how we figure our money. You be the bookkeeper tonight. She hands each of us a pencil and some yellow paper. I'll prove we're rich to you right now, my father says. Let's make a list of the money we earn in a year. How much is that? I ask. I'll write it down. But he says, not so fast. We have a lot of things to think about before we add them up. What kind of things? My mother says, we don't just take our pay in cash, you know. We have a special plan, so we get paid in sunsets, too. And having time to hike around the canyons and look for eagle nests. But I say, can't you give me one single number to write down on this paper? So we start with $20,000. That's how much my father says it's worth to him to work outdoors, where he can see sky all day and feel the wind and smell rain an hour before it's really raining. He says it's worth that much to be where, if he feels like singing, he can sing out loud and no one will mind. I have just written 20,000 when my mother says, you'd better make that 30,000 because it's worth at least another 10 to hear coyotes howling back in the hills. So I write 30,000. Then she remembers that they like to see long distances and faraway mountains that change color about 10 times a day. That's worth another $5,000 to me, she says. I'm not surprised because my mother claims to be an expert on mountain shadows in the desert. She says she can tell time by the way those colors change from dawn to dark. I scratch out what I had and write $35,000. So they add a few more things, and soon they're up to $50,000. Now my mother says, let's see what our mountain girl is worth to us. I'm beginning to catch on to their way of thinking, so I suggest I'm worth $10,000, even though my little brother has begun to laugh. They end up deciding I'm worth about $1 million. I say, I don't think I am, but I write it anyway. In fact, it turns out that every one of us is worth $1 million. So we have $4,050,000. Then I realize I want to add $5,000 myself for the pleasure I have wandering in open country, alone, free as a lizard, not following trails, not having a plan, just turning whatever way the wind turns me. They say that's certainly worth $5,000. So that makes $4,055,000. Finally, my brother says to put down $7 more for all the nights we get to sleep outside under the stars. We all say $7 doesn't seem to be enough. We talk him into making it $5,000. Now my paper says $4,060,000. And we haven't even started counting actual cash. To tell you the truth, the cash part doesn't seem to matter anymore. I suggest it shouldn't even be on a list of our kind of riches. So the meeting is over. You can read the rest of it by getting it out of the library or borrow it from me. So what do you think of Mountain Girl's parents' choices? Would you like to take your pay, partly in sunsets? Would you feel poor if you didn't have time to look for birds' nests or to wander the trails? How much money would it take for you to accept living somewhere where you couldn't see the stars? I used to live somewhere where I could see thousands of stars every night, and now I can only see a few. I wanted to take this job, so I made the change, and I am so glad I did. The important thing about the story isn't that we would each make the same choices that her family does, but that we are rich when we make the choices that matter to us. Choices like this are on my mind a lot this Thanksgiving because so many of us have had to make choices about what we value the most. Choices about whether to travel, about how to travel if we do, about whether to do the same things we usually do for Thanksgiving or change them. It might be nice if we could have it all. For example, if I could live here where I have been able to be your minister and get to know you all, and live in Vermont, where I used to live and where I could see the Milky Way. We never do have it all, though. We make decisions. If we have some freedom to decide what we value most and live according to those values, then that is a wonderful thing. It would be great to be able to gather with everyone we love this week and not put them or others at too much risk of COVID-19, but many of us have to choose one or the other. If we have a choice between being together or being safe, we're pretty lucky as things go. I'd certainly rather be able to have both, but it's pretty good to have either one. Just like Mountain Girl's family has a choice between getting to know the land so well and buying the kids new jeans and sneakers like the other kids at school. They can't do both, but to be able to choose is pretty lucky. The song that we're about to sing is about another difficult Thanksgiving, about 60 years ago. Bob and Dorothy Sengas were getting ready for Thanksgiving. Bob was a Unitarian Universalist minister. He still is. And they were planning a service of thanks. It was going to include a traditional hymn called We Gather Together, and they were feeling very thankful for all their blessings. Then, 5 days before Thanksgiving, something terrible happened. The President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, was assassinated. He was killed. Like millions of people around the country, Bob and Dory stopped looking forward much to Thanksgiving. They were sad and scared, and they probably weren't really in the mood to focus on their blessings. But Bob was the leader of a Unitarian Universalist congregation, and they needed to gather in some way that honored the ways they were feeling. So Dory and Bob took the same tune and some of the words of We Gather Together, and they wrote some new words. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living, they wrote. Maybe the people of the church couldn't think about only the good things in their lives just then, so they wrote, we sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. This life has some things in it that are hard to bear. It has assassinations and pandemics and other sad, frightening things, but they still wanted to praise life. They led their people in singing about how good it was to join in the journey, to be together in joy and tribulation, which means trouble. And then they wrote some of my very favorite words in the hymnal. When bound to human care and hope, then we are free. Being bound is usually the opposite of being free. Being bound means not being able to do just exactly what we want. No one wanted to be sad at Thanksgiving in 1963. They were stuck with it. No one wants to deal with a virus at Thanksgiving in 2020. We are stuck with it. But here's what I love about that line. The reason that they were sad in 1963 was that they cared about President Kennedy and his family and all the people in the country. If they hadn't been bound in human care and hope to these other people, they wouldn't have been sad. But they chose that connection. If we weren't bound in human care and hope to all the people who have lost someone to COVID, and all the people who are sick, and all the people who are trying not to get sick, then this would be a simpler Thanksgiving. But we are bound together. We have chosen to care about all those people. And so we can't do just anything we might want this Thanksgiving. But aren't we lucky that we have this choice to care about each other or not? We can't have just anything we want, but when what we want is to care for each other, then we are rich people. So, wherever you are spending Thanksgiving, whomever you are with at the same table or over phone lines and video calls, whatever you are eating, whatever you're doing, I hope you know that you are at the table where rich people sit. Please join in as Bruce leads us in singing We Gather Together. The words are in your order of service and there on the video.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Both sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in the journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation. When bound to human care and hope, then we are free.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Everyone, I hope you can stay after the benediction for our virtual coffee time. You'll be invited to small group conversations in our breakout rooms after a couple of minutes, or you can stay here in the main room with me to discuss the service. Maybe Kris and Greg, if you're here, you'll be able to stick around too. Now, please unmute yourself and turn on your video while we say our benediction together. Go out into the world, be of
Good
good
courage.
Hold fast to what is good.
return no one
over evil.
For evil,
Strengthen the faith.
strengthen the faith,
Joyce,
word and deed,
word and deed.
All being.
and being. Whoa,
Reading studies.
Amen.
great.
Day.